are broadcasting. We are good. Okay. So, what we're going to talk about this morning, we've spent since we started this whole endeavor, really talking about how to be on social, right? Some of the philosophy behind social, how to message properly on social, and that kind of thing. And so, what I wanted to talk about this morning was the value of friends on your social spaces, so on Facebook and that kind of thing, because not all friends are created equal, believe it or not. And so when I think about social, you know, uh, one of the things that I hear and that I read a lot from especially small business owners is the more friends or the more fans I have, the better it's going to be. And that's not necessarily the case. And here's why. If I have a million fans, right, and nobody buys and nobody talks about me and nobody repeats the things that I'm messaging out, what do I have? Nothing, exactly. But consider this: if I have 50 fans, and of each of those 50, each of them have 100 friends, right? And they repost or like the posts that you put up, now you have 500 people that have now seen your message, right? That maybe wouldn't have seen you before. So there's very much a difference in engagement levels among people that are connected to your business, and it's a matter of trying to figure out where are they at and how do I get the right kind, right? And so really what I wanted to talk about today was the different types of folks that could be in your audience. Some people like to refer to them as stalkers, just people who follow you. Some are, quite honestly, just kind of like stalkers. But really what they come down to, there's four different types. And this actually comes from a book that I've read called Social Media Matrix. And I'll have the information up here a little bit later so you can write it down if you have an interest. Probably the entire book is more than what you need right now, but that's where this information comes from. So subscribers and followers is kind of the first level, and then you have readers, which obviously are people who read the information that you post. You have fans, and you have repeaters, and we're going to go through each one of these and help identify them a little bit. Okay, so the subscribers and followers, these are your stalker types, right? And so really what they do are they're the people who at one point express enough interest to say, I want to see your information again. And so they subscribe, whether it's to an email or to your Facebook stream, or if you have a blog or a Twitter stream or something like that, they subscribe to your messaging, right? They say, I want to see this. But they oftentimes don't go beyond that. So after that initial contact where they say, yep, I want to hear from you, they just kind of go dead. And you have no idea whether they're reading your stuff. You have no idea whether they're interested any longer. You just know that they subscribed at one point, right? And so the next level then, we're going to talk about a worth equation. These people would be worth a value of 1 in this worth equation, okay? The next type of people would be the readers. And the readers, that's fine, that's okay. The readers are the type of people who either subscribe and read, or they're the kind of people who read without subscribing. And so what these type of people are the ones who they're interested in what you have to say. They actually read what you have to say, but they may or may not subscribe. And so from that perspective, these folks are more valuable because you know that they're reading, you know that they're digesting your message, but you don't have any further engagement necessarily beyond that. And so in the worth equation, these are worth a value of 2. Now the third level is really where it starts getting fun. These are called fans. And when I think of fans, I think of the raving sports fans who paint their faces. You brought some people, welcome, come on in. We've already gotten started. Good morning. We've got some folks that have already joined us on the live stream. No, you can join us, but they're on the computer already. So what we're talking about this morning is the value of people who can connect to your business on social. Not everybody is the same, and so what we've talked about so far are people that we call subscribers, which are people who either sign up for an email or for your Facebook or a Twitter stream or something of that nature, they're worth a value of 1 in a worth equation that we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Okay. The next level was what we call subscribers. Those are people who have said, or I'm sorry, not subscribers, readers. The readers are people who read your information, whether it's emails or blog posts or your website or your Facebook or Twitter stream or those kind of things. They may or may not be subscribers. Okay, so they can either read just because they found you, or they can read because they've subscribed and you sent them information, and now they're reading. Okay, those are worth a value of 2 if they're just readers. They're worth a value of 4 if they're both a reader and a subscriber. Okay, so a little bit different value there. Now we're talking about fans. This is where we really start getting into some fun with people who can connect with us on a social level, right? So fans, I love the picture up here. This is what I think about, right? What are fans? They're the people who don't just read your information, but they want people to know, hey, look, I like you, right? So like the Lions, people who paint their faces, or the ones I love that take off their shirts and like paint stuff on their chests, or those kind of perfect. That is the perfect example of a fan, and that's really what we want for our businesses. People who are so excited about what we do as a business that they're out there saying, "Hey, guess what? I'm a big fan of this." Okay, those are few and far between, believe it or not. But the ones who will go to the extremes to let you know. But with social the way that it is, it's actually not very difficult. And so when people like your business, if you have like a fan page or a business page on Facebook, everybody who likes that is at least some level of fan, right? So they're at least going to wear the ball cap to say, hey, they may not be the ones who rip off the shirt and paint themselves, but they're wearing the ball cap to say, hey, guess what? I like this business over here. And so depending on how extreme they go, the value of that fan can also change, right?
How valuable can they be?
Well, it depends, because the next level is where those fans really become the next step, where they become extremely valuable. So at this point, we're just going to assume that these are the fans who wear the ball cap, and so at that point, they're worth about 2 points. Okay. Now, if they're also readers, then now you add an additional 2 points because they're reading your information. If they're also subscribers, now you add an additional 2 points. They could be potentially worth 6 points, right? Just depending on where they are. Now, Facebook gets kind of interesting as a social platform in and of itself, because as soon as somebody likes your page, they're now a subscriber, right? However, they may not be a reader, depending on how they interact with Facebook. Okay, and Facebook being very interesting, your information will pop up on their wall when you post stuff, but they can tell Facebook, I don't think the stuff is important, and it gets pushed down. And so that reduces the likelihood that they're actually readers. Okay, so it starts getting a little bit interesting. The next area, yep, there we go. So the next area is really where you get the value. And these are really the kind of people that you want. These are called repeaters. So repeaters can be fans. They can't, but they don't have to be. They can be readers. Most of them are going to be readers at least for a moment, right? Because they're repeating something that you've written. And some will be subscribers. Now, this one is very, very fluid, and so it's very hard to assign a value to it. Here's why. One level of value is how big is that repeaters network? Do they have 2 friends? Do they have 1 million friends, right? And then of that, how much engagement does that person's network have? So if I'm connected to 20 people and we're very engaged with each other, so I read what they post, they read everything I post, they share a lot of what I post because they find it valuable, their value is higher than if I'm connected to 100 people who don't repost anything I post, right? And so even that value is very, very flexible. The next part of this one is how many of the repeaters' messages get repeated, right? So not just how engaged are their fans, but kind of on average, how many of their messages are now being redistributed? Because the more their messages are redistributed, the more likely your messages that they repost are going to be redistributed, right? And that's part of what we call velocity. So how many people are in your audience's network is reach, and that really goes out beyond just your immediate network, depending on what network you're working with. It can go out 2 or 3 levels, right? So friends of friends and friends of those friends, again, depending on what network you're working within. The engagement, so how much of stuff is getting repeated, that's called influence, right? So if my audience is repeating what I'm saying, I have influence on that audience. And if their audience is now repeating, they have influence. The amount at which it repeats is called velocity. Okay, so kind of like you get in a car and you hit the accelerator and your velocity increases. Same thing with social, same kind of concept. Okay, because of those, it's very difficult to assign values because there's just a lot of variables there. And so we're talking about a worth equation. You can assign the worth to the first three levels. You can get an idea. Is it worth your time as a small business owner to do that? Probably not. If you have a lot of people who've liked your business, would I sit down and take the time to do that? I would, because I'm a marketer. But, I wouldn't recommend that you do because it's not worth it. But you have an idea conceptually of how much of your network are repeaters versus one of the other three. And really the goal is you want to have as many repeaters as possible. So the question then becomes, how do you get more repeaters? Right? And so there's some sources that you can use. The first thing is some of these are very specific to Twitter. But if somebody's on Twitter, likelihood is they're on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn, and they probably have a blog. And so looking at Twitter, even if you don't use it, is an okay thing. So one thing is wefollow.com. What this is a directory that ranks people based on how many people they have following them. And it organizes it by category. So business, celebrities, technology, and it goes down to very niche kind of areas. So this is a great place to go and look. Another directory that I like, it's a little bit more difficult to get quality out of it, is Twello.com. And again, you can get in there, you can search for excuse me, people by interest, by what they do. For instance, to demonstrate the quality, I was working with somebody who was interested in reaching out to CIOs and CTOs. And so I got onto Twello and I did a search because I was trying to convince him that as a technology company, he probably wanted to be on Twitter. And so I did that search and I came back with, thousands of CIOs and CTOs in Twitter. Most of them were young, early to mid 20s, who were self-proclaimed CIOs and CTOs. So quality is a little bit questionable there. But you couple that with what people say, as well as how many followers they have, and that kind of starts helping you identify what the quality is there. Okay, so that's a good resource. Another great resource is Technorati. Technorati is a blog directory. TECNORATI. Sorry, it's a little bit small on the screen there. This is a blog directory. And so this allows you to go out and find blogs. And when you find a blog, essentially what you find is either a business or an author, right? And so if you find a blog that is ranked well in Technorati, they rank things based on authority, which is based on readership, based on responses, and those kind of things. So when you find a blog that's ranked well in Technorati, chances are that person is going to end up being a repeater if you can produce the kind of material that they want to repeat. Right, so that's a great place to look. Another place for Facebook, look at who's repeating or talking about your competitors, right? And so if your competitors are on Facebook and if you think they're doing it well, depending on how they have their settings for their page, you can see when people are talking about them, right? And so look for those people who are talking about them, and then try and connect with them individually. Social is very much about relationships, right, as any type of networking is. So that's one way to do it. On LinkedIn, what you would do is look at groups. Look at the people who are engaged on groups. And again, if you find somebody on Facebook or if you find somebody on LinkedIn, look to see if they're on the other platforms, wherever you're trying to reach people. And that's going to help you identify the people who are most likely going to be repeaters of information. So once you find those people who are going to be repeaters, the next step is to reach out to them and start building a relationship, right? And even if you're not producing a lot of content right now for them to repeat, you can start a one-on-one conversation with them and find out, gosh, what kind of information might you like? Or, you can become one of their subscribers, find out what kind of information they like to repeat, and then start producing that kind of information for your business. One of the crucial first steps to social is listening, right? Seeing what's going on, seeing what's being successful for other people, and trying to either fill a space that isn't being filled, knowing what attracts people, or replicate what you see being successful for others.